Where's that darn karate Jew? They're making us rabbinists look horrible. Shalom, and welcome to another exciting edition of Torah Watchman Show, hosted by none other, your humble karate servant, Rev ben-Emmett. This is a beautiful, sweet time of year. It is. It's getting colder, getting closer to the winter months, and we're in the middle. We're beginning the initial 8 days, of Hanukkah. Hanukkah, yes. It's not just about Krispy Kreme, jelly donuts, and latkes, and all of this wonderful stuff. It's about a memorial to Judah Maccabee, a great hero, a great Jewish hero. Unfortunately, the story of Judah Maccabee did not make it in their Jewish canon, in a Jewish Bible, Tanakh. Why? Who knows? I don't want to get into all the rabbinical excuses and all that, but probably because they could not identify original Aramaic or Hebrew root for that. Okay, but we have Parshah Vayeshev, which talks about the story of Yosef, the teenager, the favorite child of Yaakov. And when you have a lot of children, a father and a mother tries not to play favorite, but sometimes, you may have a savant, you may have a very smart, a very intelligent, someone who's very motivated, and just behaves himself better than their other brothers. And this is a story about how Joseph, rised up above his peers, namely his brothers, and their minimal expectations of his worthiness. So let's get started. We're talking about Joseph. He was about 17 years old, is what the Torah says. His brothers were busy shepherding the fields. They were shepherds, and they were, the father Yaakov was actually in Hebron. That's where he set up his tent and encampment there. But the more fertile fields, probably more well-watered by local creeks and brooks and things like that, was closer to Shechem. So you had the brothers out there shepherding, taking care of their flocks, grazing their herds. Then you had Joseph, who was not just, he didn't feel like he was fitting in. You know how it is to be a younger brother, you're not fitting well. And the dichotomy of truths of my own brother, he's 2 years younger than me. He's not as handsome as I am, of course. We're so diametrically opposed. We're nothing like one another, okay, unfortunately. Not as bad as Yaakov and Esau, but, it's there. And I would like to the reason I mention this because so many people have disputes among their siblings and brothers and sisters, don't they? Well, this is a wonderful, remarkable story about this. Okay? So, the so-called idle talk that goes on, the Lashon Hara, rabbinists love to do that, gossiping and things of this nature, envy, jealousy. I already mentioned that Joseph was the favorite son of Yaakov at that time. Benjamin came along, a bit later, the younger child. But remember, what's different about Joseph and Benjamin, these two boys, sons, were born through Rachel. And as you know, when Rachel died with Benjamin, it was very, very difficult for Yaakov to deal with losing Rachel like that, And then something was very unique about Joseph in that maybe in his eyes reminded him of his sweet and beautiful wife, his bride, Rachel. And then maybe they just had an affinity for that. Yaakov was a very spiritual man. He was probably more spiritual than his father, Yitzhak. And Joseph liked to be in the tents, studying, talking, communicating with his parents. He was very close to his father. He's very close to the maidservant of Yaakov, concubines that actually were raising him like his stepmother instead, in lieu of the loss of his mother. So you had a situation here that Yaakov loved Joseph so much that he commissioned the embroidering of a beautiful, colorful coat of many colors. What were those color scheme? Were they pastels? I don't know. I envision it probably was an aggregate color of some of the schemes and branding of the royal crest of some of the tribes that were still in development at that time. Who knows? But regardless, Joseph was like a savant, very cerebral, visionary, and literally he did have visions. He had dreams of the future. That was his gift. That was his supernal gift given to him by none other than Elohim. So he talked about his dreams all the time. Sometimes we have lucid dreams. I remember dreams I had when I was a child. And, in the last days, it says that old men and children and people will dream dreams. They will dream dreams of the future and things of this nature. But, God was using him in a very unique way to the end of saving young Israel from the growing drought situation that's sweeping across the land of Canaan. Previous parashas were talked about a lot about drought and Canaan for good reason, because these are very evil tribes of polytheistic people, and God has been judging them consistently. So in the second aliyah, you can turn with me, if you have your Bibles open, your Tanakh or your Old Testament, whatever, who you are. I'm speaking to Quarter Jews primarily. I'm speaking to all Jews, whether you're religious, observant, or indifferent. I'm speaking to some Christians there. I've even heard a couple years ago where some Christians actually were taking my lessons into the Sunday school classes, believe it or not, because a lot of Christians are very interested in these Bible stories because they're very significant for them too. Compared to some liberal American Jews, some Christians know the Bible, the Jewish Bible, more than some Jews do, which is a strange anomaly that's here in America, as far as Jewish education. So turn with me to Genesis chapter 37, verse 12, beginning there. And we're going to talk about Joseph. He had a dream that will just end his relationship with his brothers for quite some time. What am I talking about? Well, the brothers did not want to hear incessantly about Joseph's dreams, okay? They just could not identify with that. Like Yehuda and Reuben and Don and some of the others, Levi, they were just pretty much agricultural based. They were kind of men of the field, and if they didn't hold it in their hands, it wasn't tangible. They really did not, they couldn't measure it. You couldn't eat it or whatever, you interacted with it. They just did not want to deal with it. They didn't have time for it. They didn't have the patience for a long-winded philosophical synopsis per se of the world and the changing world and the consequences and things of this nature, much less spiritual visions. Of course, they were jealous of Joseph that he had his gift, and Yaakov recognized something very special about Joseph in the very beginning. Okay, and maybe that played to the so-called favored son situation. Anyway, his older brothers were incidentally born primarily from Leah, and later on, her concubines. So you had different divisional breakouts between these brothers. Some brothers thought they were superior to others simply because their birth mother was different. The joke about, I'm a brother from another mother. Well, literally, it applied in the household of Yaakov because he married two women. And he fathered numerous children through concubines later on. But anyway, Joseph said to them, please listen to this dream. I've had it overnight, every night, and it sticks with me and it bothers me. I have no one to talk to. You're my brothers. And I just want to share with this dream. It's nothing personal. So this is the way it goes. We were piling up wheat in the middle of the field, and my wheat pile stood upright, and your wheat piles formed a circle around and bowed down to me. Now, this dream disturbed Joseph at that time, but when he told it to his brothers, it disturbed them more. And they said, "Who are you? Who are you?" And especially Yehuda, I run the show, and I'm the head. I'm the head of the 12 tribes. I'm the senior guy here. And you tell me, you're small fry, I'm going to bow down to you one day? Get out of here. I don't have time for this. I'm sick and tired of our Father playing favorites with you, okay? Or something like that. So, are you becoming a king over us, Yehuda said. And he's joking with his brothers, hatefully, and being facetious. Or perhaps you may be secretly ruling over us already. Well, this caused a lot of infighting with the brothers and bruised feelings. Now, I have to mention this. Rashi goes out on a limb here, and he does more to admonish the behavior of Joseph than he does his brothers, who later on kidnapped him, threw him in a deep dry well, and then sold him to Ishmaelite traders to go to Egypt. Even putting his life, on the edge there, But we haven't gotten to that part yet. But I'm just saying is that God was with Joseph more than his other brothers, just like Yaakov and Esau. Joseph picked up the phone. Judah was busy doing other things, maybe skinny dipping or whatever in the local streams. Who knows? But anyway, they were very different one another. They had dynamically opposed points of view, maybe worldviews. And they definitely had issues with the father, Yaakov, playing favorites with one person versus another. And if you want to blame people, listen, this is just human relationship. There's no blaming here. There's no sin. There's really no need of a huge amount of teshuvah. But, he had a 17-year-old and you have someone much older, well in the mid and upper 20s, complaining about a young man having dreams, okay? Essentially. So then Joseph dreamed another dream, and he told it to his brothers. So Joseph was probably the water carrier, water boy, and he went back and forth between Hebron and to Shechem and carried water and supplies, maybe a donkey cart or something. I don't know. So he went back and forth when he had duties and tasks that his father had messages. Maybe he was a messenger back and forth for Yaakov, because Yaakov was getting older and he couldn't get around very effectively. So it sent Joseph out to speak to his sons and give them certain tasks, okay, and reporting back and forth. That's probably what's happening. But, Joseph uses opportunity then. He could have kept his mouth shut. But when you have a dream that's so real, so surreal, so lucid, you remember every details in color and Dolby stereo surround. You feel in your heart and soul you have to get it out, or you're just going to explode inside. I think it was more than the excitement. I think he was actually concerned and afraid, and he wanted to talk to his family. If anyone was more sociable, it was Joseph. I would say that. Okay, maybe he talked too much. Who knows? So this is the dream. The sun and the moon and 11 stars bow down to me. Okay? Here's that bowing down to the center person, Joseph. All around him, other people were bowing to him. He said, his father rebuked him at this dream. So he told his father first, did not receive a good reception, and then later on he told his brothers about it. And then even Yaakov was taken back about this. He said, whoa, son, I love you beyond all others, but shall I and your mother and your brothers, my stepmother, and bow down to you? And his brothers now envied him more because the in-talking began to increase between Yaakov asking his brothers, what's going on with Joseph's dreams? What do you think about this? Okay? Something that you cannot understand clearly is probably more threatening to you, puts you on edge and anxious, and maybe make you afraid if you don't have that understanding. Joseph had the understanding for the dreams because he was an interpreter. We'll get to that shortly. So what happened is that the relationships went downhill fast. And the third aliyah in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, beginning of verse 23, if you will follow on, the brothers went to tend their father's sheep. Okay? Later, Yaakov sent Joseph back to check on them and see how they were doing, just like I said. He found his brothers, but as he is approached, they imagined Joseph plotting against them and believed he deserved to die. They literally thought, now think about Yehuda, firstborn, getting the booty or the largest part of the inheritance. They thought that Joseph was going to supplant that inheritance and that fortune. So they had delusions of grandeur, per se, and they thought this young kid would try to get on their father's best interest and favoritism and winning his favorite and maybe supplant that inheritance. And does that sound like a familiar story between Yaakov and Esau? Yeah, pretty much. So that was happening. So as he approached, his brothers started plotting, we need to get rid of Joseph, even to the point of killing their own flesh and blood. Okay? They said to one another, behold, here comes the master of dreams. Come, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and then that will tell our father when he's missing that wild beast ate him, consumed him. And they were probably mountain lions and other carnivorous animals out there, and indeed there's probably dangers in some of the places there, and they had wolves and things of that nature too, and that's why they as shepherds had to continually watch over their flocks day and night. So bottom line, they believed what he did or what he was plotting to do, and there was a lot of phobia going on here in psychology that he deserved to die. So next, Reuben intervened on behalf of Joseph when his other angry brothers like Yehuda was plotting his imminent death. Okay? So Reuben's, the eldest son, heard this and rescued Joseph from the hands. Reuben said, do not spill any blood. Throw him into the pit, but do not lay a hand on him. Don't let it be your sole exclusive liability for this. Now, Reuben was the oldest son, but Yehuda was given the greatest blessing, so it seemed like he was senior to everyone else. That's a clarification there. So now Reuben, after the plan was already completed, I guess they voted on it. Reuben said, instead of slitting his throat, indirectly put him in harm's way by throwing him in a pit, a dry well, or something like that. And then later on, Reuben had secretly to himself said, I will go and rescue my brother after Yehuda and the others, after they cooled off a little bit. Okay? So the brothers seized Joseph, taking his coat, and throwing him into an empty, waterless pit. You know, snakes and scorpions. I would not want to go down a dark place with spiders and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, suddenly a caravan of Ishmaelites, they said suddenly, probably that day, because he didn't have water or food, and it was probably, and very important, that something would change his status. So the Ishmaelites would come by on the horizon, and these were traders that were bringing spices and things of that nature back and forth to Egypt for gold and silver. Okay? They were heading to Egypt, and on their way, they came to this pit. So Yehuda says to the others, hey, let's sell him and get money, because we'll stand by and watch what happens. and then we'll intervene at that time, and maybe we can make a buck off his head. Yehuda did not like Joseph at all, okay? So let's sell him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh. If we sell him, we don't have to worry about him dying in his pit. Regardless, I forgot to bring my rope and ladder. He stuck there for a while until someone helps him. So for 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold into a caravan going to Egypt. Okay? So bye-bye, Joseph, to Egypt. When Reuben returned and saw that Joseph was gone, he did not know about the business affairs of Yehuda selling his brother, telling the Ishmaelites that did not see the pit, but they were passing by the way, hey, there's someone in this pit, a young man, that's probably worth some money. Okay? So anyway, Joseph had a handsome countenance, maybe a physique, maybe he had muscles or some sort of athletic tone or something like that. But anyway, he probably had all of his teeth. In other words, for a slave, per se, during that time, you had to have teeth and you had to look strong enough to be able to pull things behind you and do work, okay? So that's why they probably were very interested in him, because they wanted to make money, okay, profit. So when Reuben finally came and he decided, when he noticed that his clothes were torn, and I did not cover this before, but Yehuda was plot when he took the clothes off, tore the coat of many colors, this jacket that Joseph wore, his favorite jacket, made by his mother, and then they spilt some blood on it from an animal, and of course Reuben saw this, and he was taken by, and they returned home, and Yaakov recognized Joseph's coat immediately. So the story was that Yehuda and Reuben rigged together, is that some animal came at night and just tore Joseph's body to pieces, and there's all that's left. He tore his clothes in mourning and immediately started sitting Shiva. Yaakov thought he lost his favorite boy. Okay, he'd never see him again. He believed the lie and the deception there. Everyone tried to console Yaakov, but he refused to accept any consolation, saying, "For I will go down to my son mourning in my grave. I have nothing to live for." And so his father wept and wept and wept. Yehuda did not think about how much hurt would have been incurred by the killing or the removal of Joseph from him. Consequences can be very bitter truth, a bitter pill to swallow, right? We don't think clearly before we act. Sometimes we have a bolt of anger and we don't restrain that anger and activity, and it can get out of hand, and then we have consequences that we have to deal with later on. This is what is happening between Reuben and Yehuda on behalf of Joseph. So meanwhile, Joseph was now sold to Potiphar. So you can imagine when they sell slaves, they put them up on a platform per se, and say, do I hear 50 shekels? I hear 100 shekels, or silver, or whatever the barter system was, and was sold to Potiphar. He was a councilman to the Pharaoh. He was a priest. Joseph went into the household of Potiphar. He's a chief of cooks for Egyptian Pharaoh, a high-ranking individual. Now, at the same time, when Joseph was sold into slavery by the Ishmaelites to the court of Pharaoh through Potiphar, the story of Yehuda and Tamar is fascinating. It really is. Turn with me, please, to Bereshit chapter 38, verse 1. This is the foretell. So we have two storylines going on here. Quickly, Yehuda, who had the idea to sell Joseph, removed himself from his brothers and married in another land. So he moved on with his life. He didn't expect to see Joseph again, and the story was pretty much no one would out him about what really happened to Joseph. Okay, so it became a father to many children. His first son married a woman whose name was Tamar. But was evil in the eyes of Elohim, and Elohim caused him to die. Very interesting. The second son was displeasing in the eyes of Elohim, and Elohim caused him to die as well. Yehuda then decided Tamar would stay with them, so he would be her caretaker, watch over him, because, like a black widow, she already lost 2 husbands, right? So during this time, he promised Tamar that, I have a younger son, but he's not marrying age. When he gets of age and puberty or whatever, we can talk a business about him because I owe you something. But, Yehuda forgot about this. So when Yehuda does not follow through in his promise, Tamar conceives his plans. She goes out one night dressed like a widow. She sat waiting for Yehuda to come home for shearing sheep. Now, in other accounts, she was dressed more like a harlot, a prostitute, or someone like that, or someone that was very appealing, and she hid her appearance, probably darkened her eyes or covered her face or something like that. Now, she was dressed in black, it says like a widow, mistaking Tamar for a prostitute. Instead of in reality, his daughter-in-law, Yehuda is intimate with Tamar, and she conceives a child. Now, wait a minute, let's back up. We have Yehuda, self-righteous chieftain, over his future tribe, marrying women, concubines, and many children. Here's a married man, first chance he gets, he sees an attractive woman at the gates of a camp or something along the road, thinks she's an easy person, prostitute, has intercourse with her without even thinking about his marital vows, without even thinking about his mourning father. He thinks only of himself with this. But stay with me. So she becomes pregnant. So later Yehuda finds out that his daughter-in-law Tamar has prostituted herself and becomes pregnant. So without the disguise, he sees his daughter-in-law there and he sees her pregnant. Now he knows that she did not get pregnant from his first 2 sons because they all died before that marriage commitment could be consummated. Okay? So one bad decision leads to another. The bad decision about Joseph, the bad decision about forgetting about Tamar, to marry his youngest son, and now accusing her of a prostitute because she's pregnant. That's an immediate thought there. He orders her to be burned. So he has the authority to execute a woman in his camp that he promised to watch over, Tamar, because he made the decision to judge her as unworthy. Okay? You won't hear this from Rashi. Okay? So forget that in the Talmud. So what happened, Tamar was smarter, had more spine, more courage, and more tenacity and class than all the other sons of Yaakov, especially Yehuda, who is self-righteous. Okay? So she devised a plan that, during the time that that she met Yehuda and she was dressed in black and he thought she was a prostitute, well, there was a payment for services. Now, what she wanted in return, she says, I want your signet ring and I want your staff. Well, I guess she was so gorgeous or seductive, whatever. She was coming on to Yehuda at that time, and he agreed to anything that was required for that Las Vegas relationship. Okay, but what happened is that she knows about the gifts that he had given to her when he did not know her true identity. Okay, Tamar, and then she presented the gifts when he was about to pronounce capital punishment on her. Okay, Tamar, and then Yehuda said, Tamar is more righteous than I, because I did not give my youngest son as I had promised. You hear about Jewish vows and covenants. They're unbreakable. They're except for Yom Kippur maybe, but vows are very important when you make them to God. When you make a vow as a Jew to someone else, that vow is actually before Elohim. Understand that, okay? Tamar was smart enough to have custody of some property of Yehuda that could only uniquely be identified back to Yehuda. So that was her trying to say, safety deposit box per se to protect her own hide. So Yehuda apologized for the situation. He was very embarrassed, and pretty soon everyone in the tribe found out whose child she was bearing. Okay? So moving forward, Yehuda did not ever become intimate with Tamar again. Obvious reasons, it's forbidden. But there was twins in her womb. Fascinating. We'll get to that later. Now back to Joseph in Egypt, the interpreter. Now in Bereshit chapter 39, verse 1, and this is combining all the odds 5 through 7 to wrap this up. In Egypt, Joseph was flourishing. He was doing very well in his new job under Potiphar, and everything he touched and everyone he interacted with at least appeared that Elohim was his help, his Ezri, underneath Potiphar. And God was blessing Potiphar because he is watching and protecting Joseph, at least temporarily. So he became Potiphar's personal servant and overseer his property. Then Potiphar's wife sought to be intimate with Joseph. She made a pass at Joseph, okay? Joseph refused, okay? As a gentleman, he said, how can I be intimate with my master? You're both married. I can't do this. Nothing personal. I can't commit such a wickedness against Potiphar and sin against Elohim. He actually said that in the Torah. So in that whole trip and everything else, he never doubted Elohim was with him. He knew that it was part of that dream, those set of dreams was coming fulfilled before his presence, okay? Now in response, Potiphar's wife blamed Joseph for trying to seduce her, so she turned it around. You have a false testimony, false witness, right? Accusing Joseph of being the one that was seducing her because she was jilted and angry and upset with Joseph for turning her away, okay? Maybe she's getting up a little bit older. Maybe he was very handsome. Maybe she thought that, hey, maybe I'm not as attractive as I thought, okay? Who knows what was going on in that relationship? Sounded like a soap opera. So the chief, he was thrown in prison. Long story short, he was thrown in prison. Potiphar notified Pharaoh. Pharaoh made a decision to throw Joseph in prison for this seduction, okay? Attempted rape, essentially, that's what he was being accused for. And that's potentially capital punishment. But Elohim went. He sent an angel with Joseph into prison. That's not where his life ended. So the chief of the prison selected Joseph to oversee all the prisoners. Here again, you have Elohim working with different ministers, different individuals, appointees of Pharaoh and the Potiphar to bless Joseph and protect him. Okay? You have this going on. The Elohim never took his eyes off of Joseph because he had great plans for him. So whatever Joseph attempted, he succeeded. Even in prison, he was successful, right? So maybe he had better clothes, and maybe he had better food, and maybe he washed more frequently. Then the Pharaoh's butler at the same time and baker was sentenced to jail, along with Joseph. And Joseph was the overseer of their custody. He was like the jailer. So they both dreamed one night. Elohim was behind this. The next morning, Joseph could see that they were troubled. They told him what they each had vivid dreams and seeking the interpreter. And then, do not interpretations belong to Elohim? Said Joseph. Please tell me. So he's saying there's no interpretation for your dream through any soothsayer. There's no interpretation for any of your dreams through any necromancer. Only God is the master interpreter of all dreams that we we have here. Now, continuing on, Joseph wanted to help. The chief butler went first. He said, I had 3 vines which bloomed into a cluster of ripe grapes. I pressed the grapes into Pharaoh's cup and gave it to him. Your job as a butler would be restored in 3 days, is what Joseph said. He immediately knew the answer to the riddle, okay? Now, please remember me and Pharaoh. Understand, he's asking, says, I gave you an interpretation to your dream, which is good news for you. You're going to be freed shortly. Tell the Pharaoh, when all of this comes to pass, that I gave you the interpretation of this dream, and it came from God, and that I'm innocent. Okay? Then the baker promised, but he forgot. So, when the baker told him his dream, we had the butler, and now we had the baker. The other person was jailed. His dream did not turn out too well. There were 3 baskets of different, all kinds of baked foods, and then the birds ate them out of the basket on my head. Sometimes people carry baskets of produce and things on their head. The 3 baskets equal 3 days. So you have 3 days, the butler would be released. And then you have the baker in 3 days, the Pharaoh will hang you from the neck. You're dead, and you have vultures and ravens and carnivorous birds feeding upon your flesh. A very horrific thing. It came to pass on Pharaoh's birthday that he made a feast for all of his servants. Happy birthday, Pharaoh, right? So including the baker and the butler. The Pharaoh restored the chief of the butlers, but the chief of the bakers were hung, just as Joseph predicted. Now, however, the chief of the butler did not remember Joseph and forgot completely about him. So Joseph stayed in prison longer. It seems like Elohim is too busy to attend to releasing him from prison when he was innocent before God and innocent before his accusers. This is how we end this parsha. I hope you enjoy it. I want to add a little note here. The Haftarah is in Zechariah chapter 2, verse 14 through chapter 4, verse 7. Please read that when you have time, because that is generation important, just as this Torah Parsha, because it speaks about a similar use case and story that I just presented. Okay? Well, I hope everyone does well. I hope you have a good week. I hope you have a good Shabbos. I hope you can use this information, like I said, to be needful in your life, in your families, in healing. You know, I got into a crazy argument with my wife today, and I immediately started getting into teshuva mode, and I apologized to her. She apologized to me, and I had to explain to my daughter that even adults make mistakes, and we lose gold stars. Listen, we all have issues. We all have problems. We have family issues, and some issues run so deep, you feel like you can never get over them, and they follow you to the grave. They follow you to the grave. Don't be like the brothers in this story here, that they have unresolved issues of jealousy and resentment. What they should have done, and what Yaakov should have done, he was much older though. Maybe he was not able to do this. What they should have done is had a family intervention on behalf of Joseph and cleared the air. They knew who God was. They knew God had blessed all of them. So why would Yehuda devise such a devious plan and killing, Joseph, whether he was a favorite son of his father or not, and then sell him into slavery in Egypt and never seen him again? You know, listen, this story is so critically important to you. Why? Because it's in the Torah. If it's in the Torah, that means it's generationally important for you to do something with it today. I'm not telling you what to do with this message. I'm presenting the message best way I can. The words come from Elohim. They were written down by his prophet Moshe, and they are generationally important as much as it was then as it is now. because it's proved, it's stayed its course through time and generations and thousands of years, so I can present this message for you today. Take care. Pay attention to your dreams. I have dreams too, and some of them are very lucid, and I think they have meanings and symbols. You don't have to be a Kabbalist to believe in things that you can't hold in your hands, right? But take care. Please share the knowledge of love and wealth and truth if everyone's willing to hear it. If they aren't willing to hear you and they get angry and they're about to walk away, you say, wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute, sister. I didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. You've seen my life. You've seen my life. You know where I've been. I was in that same place that you are now. Look at the fruit of this tree. Listen, I'm living everything in my life, at least in the past 5 years, of what I'm telling you to be true now. And I care enough about you, brother. I don't want you to go down that dark path like I did. That's just what it means to be a Torah builder and not a Torah destroyer, and be a light of truth and a beacon, a lighthouse on a hill that will not be hid, so that everyone can know what that light of truth means, that God is always calling. Are we answering the phone? God called Joseph continually, but Yehuda did not respond to that phone. There are so many opportunities that we miss every day for us to be blessed. And then God is not going to wait for us to wake up and listen to him. He's going to bless and allow someone else to do that act of charity, that tzedakah, helping someone in need, and be blessed. So if I can tell you anything, please make your life be a blessing. Live out the Torah true in your life. As Cardi say, it's the Tanakh and nothing else. So help me God. Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi ben-Emmett signing out until next time. For anyone out there that's watching this Torah Parsha, close to Shabbat, good Shabbos. For anyone out there during this time of Hanukkah, I would like to say Yom Hanukkah Sameach to you too. It's a wonderful festival of light. Enjoy it. There's so much evil in the world. I noticed the IDF and the Gaza Strip erected a huge, shiny menorah there for the IDF troops, because they have to spend that war, military duty, and active duty, and all that through Hanukkah, unfortunately. Okay? Well, take care. Goodbye.